What's up, everyone, and welcome into the Buffalo Sports Collective. It is Monday, December 9th, 2024. As always, I am PK alongside my co-host Phil for episode 316. Big show to talk about today. We got the Bandits' first game. We got the Bills losing one in a fashion that hasn't been done in 245 attempts. What the Bills did, they were the first loss. The NFL was 245-0 until the Bills loss on today's show. And then the Sabres still stink, so that will be a very quick, short segment that we will end the show on to send you into your work weeks on a fun note. So remember, you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and TikTok at Buffalo Sports Collective. And on X and Blue Sky at Buffalo Sports Co. Don't forget to follow our channel wherever you listen to podcasts. Check out our website at buffalosportscollective.com. You can check out our store on our link tree on our social media sites, or at the top of the website, just hit that shop tab. You can represent the BSC on the go and look for the time breakdowns in the description of the show. We are jumping right into this because, like I said, we have a big show, but I also I caught the plague this morning. Phil's caught it multiple times since the last time I caught it, and it finally made its way over here, which is even more of a joy when you're moving. I was working for 13 straight hours Saturday on the house, went over there today, and this is kicking my butt. But what else kicked butt was the Bandits. What a transition, Phil. On Saturday, 15-7 victory. Bucky and Smith were three-time goal scorers. That's a hat trick. Nanico, Kluch, and Byrne, 2 each. McKay, Dawson, Dylan Robinson with 1 each. Vince, unbelievable. 54 of 61 save shots were 62-61 in favor of Buffalo. Both teams went 0 for on the power play. Buffalo 0 for 5, Rochester 0 for 4. And for those that care, Buffalo won the faceoff dot 16-10.
Yeah, I mean, if I could have one singular takeaway from this game, it is that they played realistically not all that great and came away with a just dominating victory. I know it was 7-6 after 3, and we seem to once again be in, we'll see how the rest of the season pans out, but fourth quarter domination already starting once again. They did it all last season, and they just took right back off in this game. But, I mean, realistically, there were a lot of things that this team needs to work on from game one against a good Rochester team headed into game two. And even with all the things they need to work on, they won 15-7 against arguably what could be one of the best teams in the entire league and made it look pretty easy the whole way. I mean, it really, I know they got off to a slow start, but even 4-1 at half felt really good for a team in their first game against a really good team. 7-6 after 3. Again, Rochester had that little bit of a fight back, but then even that, the Bandits came away at the end of the third with the lead and then just took off in the fourth. So overall, a really, really good game, but one that had plenty of errors, and to have kind of the improvements they need to make as a team and still win 15-7 is really impressive.
Yeah, this was a type of game where it's game one of an 18-game schedule. You could definitely tell that it was their first game of the season. They had the bye week, the week one of the NL season. I feel less about all the stuff they need to correct and more about it's just game one. Those things are going to be improving, and
for sure.
I guess we could start with the goaltender, that area, because we usually break it down: forwards, defense / transition, goalies, and then the miscellaneous stuff. It was something that I was going to keep a very close eye on to start the season, based on what we saw last year of what type of Matt Vince were we going to get. And we know what he is late into the season and into playoffs. He's unbelievable. But early last season, the first few games, yes, the defense was very, very injured. And yes, they were throwing out, Cam Wires was a rookie, and you didn't have Adam Bomberry, and Bryce Sweeting was out, and so on and so forth. There was just a lot of injuries on the defensive end, and the forwards were having to carry them. But Matt Vince did not look like peak Matt Vince to start the season. Anybody could see that, and anybody would say that. And I think he was still one of the top goaltenders in the league, but he wasn't making those unbelievable saves that we were seeing years prior. And we accounted that for, hey, maybe he's a little nicked up. Maybe it's going to take him a little bit longer now that he's in his 40s. Maybe it's because he didn't play in the summer. And This was nothing like that. I mean, you were looking at the goals, and I think I counted 2 or 3 that I think Matt Vince wants back, and he made 54 saves on 61 attempts. That's just unbelievable to me. I mean, the first one, delayed penalty on Rochester. They get multiple second chances. It goes right to McConvey right in the middle, and he beats Vince. Nothing really you can do about it. Dawson jumps off his guy for whatever reason. He can't get back, and Vince... The second one was one that I think Matt Vince would want back. I think he would say that, and I think everybody out there kind of would admit that's one that Matt Vince would want back. Again, he let 7 goals in, so you're nitpicking here. Missed shot, falls right to Reese. Josh Byrne right in front of the net, just standing around, no chance for Vince. The second one, now Dawson can't find the ball. It's a one-timer. Lanchbury, 4-4, no chance for Vince. Shorthanded goal by Fields, who had 2 guys on him. I think Vince wants that one back. That one snuck by him. Fields bullet from long. Weiss is late getting out on him. Vince drops low over his shoulder, and then Lanchbury, long shot that bounces. I think Vince wants that one back, but that one was a trickier shot. So the 6th and the 7th goal, I mean, you could either say even maybe Vince wants those ones back, but even then, he made unbelievable save after unbelievable save. He made those big-time saves when he needed to. He only let 7 in, and 3 to 4 of them he might want back. That's how dominant of a performance you got from Matt Vince.
Yeah, I had 2 goals against him that he probably wants back, and you already mentioned him. The shorthanded one, he definitely, you could tell in his face, he knew that he wants that one back. He didn't really know how that snuck through, and then the other one that was outside the 5-hole from Turner Evans, that low shot. It was a good low shot, but one that normal Vince is going to save. But at the same time, he had that massive breakaway save against Rochester after Rochester had scored 3 straight goals early in the game and just tied it. I know Rochester eventually went on to go up shortly after that, but still at that point, it was a huge, huge save. And then when it was 7-6, he had a huge breakaway save on Gilgray. He was one of the best transition players in the entire game. And that was 7-6. If that goes to 7-7, who knows how the game ends up finishing out if he lets in a goal like that. But like you said, I mean, those are the things that were missing last year at the start of the season, were those big saves, those big breakaway saves that he has to come up with that he's known for. And in this game, he had at least 2 or 3 breakaway saves that he already looks like he's in mid-peak form. 54 saves for a game is on the very high end for saves. So even that was really impressive, and just the numbers alone, 7 goals against, 88.5 save percentage. Those both are just monster, and the defense in front of him played pretty well. I mean, for what they were able to do, and then even 0 for 4 on the power play on a offense that you and I think would both consider one of the better offenses in all of lacrosse, as you just saw in week 1 with Fields and Smith putting up 18 combined points, and then in this game, they did not do anywhere near that well.
Yeah, you can't forget about the monster outlet pass that Matt Vince had early on to get the 1-0 lead. It looked like prime Christian Del Bianco type pass out to Dylan Robinson, who hit Token Anacoke for, again, the 1-0 lead. So if you took Matt Vince in our BSC Bandits fantasy game,
He's off to an assist.
He's off to an assist game. That's why we included goaltenders there. But you were talking about the defense and how well they were performing. I didn't really notice, and we kind of already talked about the goals against and the slip-ups that the defense did have, and there was very few. I noticed that even when it was loose balls, they were going for, like, it was a competitive game nonstop. They were great at gathering those loose balls. We always say that we on this show prefer cause turnovers to loose balls. We think that has a bigger impact in the game. But I mean, they weren't given an inch. The loose balls in the corner, the defense was slapping sticks away to get those loose balls. They were keeping the defense to the outside. I can't think of very many opportunities that the offense for Rochester got inside on Matt Vince in this one. It was great work, one-on-one versus Fields. I remember Weiss right up at the end of the first quarter. He was just one-on-one and was able to, after Steve Perillo got the ball with 12 seconds left and lost it, I believe it was, because there was a collision between 2 Bandits forwards. Weiss was the one that was on Fields, and he was able to knock that ball away and not give Fields that opportunity from that left side that he's so great at. I mean, the transition work on the PK, Witty up to Weiss, who finds Kluch inside, but that foot was on the line. I thought the PK was great, killed off nearly 2 straight minutes on 1 full shift. Priolo was very sloppy on his own end, but he loses the ball and then ends up drawing his own penalty. And then a great pick by Dylan Robinson at the end on 6-on-5. I know it was kind of out of reach at that point, but it was a clean pick, right down and nailed that empty netter. I really liked it. It seemed like the defense and the goaltending seemed like they were in mid-season form to me. There's like we said, it's game 1. There's always ways to improve and fine-tuning that they need to do, but it seemed like the defense was exactly what we've been looking for all year. Like, since we started covering this team, this is the type of defense where they just don't give an inch and keep all those shots to the outside, and I think they did exactly that. And if you get performances like this on the defensive end all season long, they're going to end up on the winning side more than the losing side.
Yeah, and the few breakdowns they did have, they were often on just kind of fluke rebound shots or shots from the outside. I think I had 3 goals from the inside, but a lot of those were off of rebounds or off of, really quick plays that the offense for Rochester actually made it work. But even on those plays, you could tell the defense immediately knew that they screwed up, knew that they needed to do something different. I think it was the one where it was like rapid fire passing. Dawson immediately held his head up that's on me. I should have had that player. And then Byrne, same thing when he was, I don't know what Byrne was doing on that play. I love him. He's a great player, but on that defensive play, he was literally watching the shot and then just watched the ball go to the Rochester player who scored. And no idea what he was really doing. But you could tell immediately after the goal went in, he was like, all right, well, I should not have been ball watching that entire time. Screwed up on that one. But yeah, 7 goals against a very, very, very talented Rochester offense. Like you said, eliminated Fields for the most part. Smith had 0 goals, and I think it was mentioned on the broadcast it might be the second time ever in his career with 0 goals in a game, and the guy is amazing. We both really like him, but for him to put up 0 is just really a testament to the defense and a testament to Matt Vince. They both played really, really well. And like you said, if there was a portion of this game that looked mid-season form, it was absolutely the defense and Vince. And then Witty playing as tough as he was a very scrappy-looking player out there for our first really look at him. I know he's going up against his former team. There might be a little extra juice in him, but you could tell he had some big hits. He had some after-the-play kind of shoves and things that as long as he didn't get a penalty, it's fine, which I don't think he did get any in this game. So I think he had the one early was the delayed penalty, I think was on him that Rochester ended up scoring on, so it wiped it out. But other than that, Witty looked pretty good in his opening to the Buffalo Bandits as well.
Yeah, and I said it very briefly on that Friday show that it seemed like, and I didn't have any stats to back it up, but I do now, that Buffalo seemed to always hold Connor Fields in check. 2 goals, no assists, 16 shots on net, 12 loose balls, 1 caused turnover. He just couldn't get anything going. Their offense seemed like they couldn't get in rhythm. Like you said, a lot of the goals that were even scored were kind of on the scrambles on the defense where they were out of position, or it was that one-timer by Lanchbury on the side there, or like the weird bounce that went right to Ryland Reese. So even in those opportunities, Ryan Smith, no goals on 10 shots. You had Ryan Lanchbury, 2 goals on 11 shots. It's just those 3 players are the ones that carry this load, and they went for, 37 shots. They had 4 goals. That's pretty darn good. Not just goaltending, but to keep them in the spots that they were in to limit the opportunities that they would have further out. That's exactly the type of defense you want to be playing. That's exactly the type of defense Bandits preach. And, it's I guess we can transition into the offense here. Very slow start for this offense. It seemed like a lot of the shots were off target, a lot of missed shots. I have it right here. It's just way too many missed shots, especially in the 5-on-3 power play.
That's what I had as well.
When they went over on that one, I was like, okay, this is one of those games that, Buffalo's just going to look better, but they're going to end up on the losing side of it. Because, the 5-on-3, and yes, they still had Priolo at half. It worked out on this one because there were 2 or 3 missed opportunities that went way back to midfield, and he was right there to gather it back up. But The 5-on-3, the power play is the biggest knock for me on the offense. Is that one? There were a handful of opportunities that I could think of off the top of my head, just barely missed opportunities. Klutch, one timer off of, I believe, the Dane Smith one. I think, I believe Hutchcraft got over to it, but that was the one thing that stood out to me on the power play. It's just so many missed opportunities, and they weren't really able to beat Hutchcraft on the power play. That's the one biggest area for me on the forward group and the offensive group that I definitely think needs to improve as the season goes on.
Yeah, it was those two things. And when I said that this team needs to improve when I started, it's pretty much just they need to play more. It's not that the team's bad by any means, and it is things that will quickly correct as they play more, but it was that. You could tell it was their first game, a lot of shots off target, playing pretty well. Like, the passes were there, the opportunities were there. Even on that 5-on-3, they looked systematically amazing. The opportunities they were getting by their passes were flawless, but then they would go to shoot it at sometimes a wide open net, and it would just go completely wide, completely high, hitting post, just missing the net. It was just those little things that even a lot of their shots in certain opportunities looked like a great opportunity, great shot area, and then they would just launch it really high, really wide. And you could tell that that's something that will easily click as the season goes on, and even may have clicked by the fourth quarter, where they just went on that gigantic run and started to look a little bit better. And Bucky with his hat trick, my goodness, am I happy that he is back. The man is so sneaky, and him and Dane doing the pick and roll that we want him and Nanacoke to do. I don't care who does it, as long as somebody is out there picking and rolling. And him and Dana Buchanan had 2, I think, pick and rolls.
Yep.
And then the other one he just fed to him, and it was a hilariously kind of offhand kind of floating shot for his hat trick. But Buchanan looked good. The offense as a whole did look fine. I mean, they had tons of shots. Again, the passes were good. The team looked fine. It was just the shots were off. And even on the power play, again, even all of them, they had really good opportunities on most of their power plays. They just were seemingly aiming like too specific to try to just pinpoint that corner, pinpoint that shot, and they were just missing that little bit. But I think the offense as a whole, as the season goes on, will be perfectly fine. It was interesting to see our first real look at McKay as the third lefty forward. I think in this game, everything seemed on paper to go pretty well for the offense and defense. You went up against a good team and kind of crushed them. So I still don't like it. We'll see how it plays out. We'll see if McKay turns into more of the Dane, where he's playing a little bit more defense and more offense both ends instead of just out the front door. But him as a third lefty forward, it wasn't bad necessarily, but you did see, I mean, Burns still had 5 points, 2 and 3, but it didn't seem like he was getting the looks that we're used to him getting. Again, it's game one. We'll give them time. The offense was fine, but McKay as that lefty forward, and it's not a knock on McKay, I just like him more as defensive in transition and not a full-on forward. We'll see. We'll see how it ends up kind of turning out, but for game one, it worked out in their favor pretty well.
Yeah, this is the one area that I really wanted to talk about. I'm glad you brought that up because I kind of lapse in mindset here. I believe I texted you on Friday that I listened to the OTCB podcast with Teddy Jenner and Pat Gregoire about the interview they had with Ian McKay, and he pretty much said he's a full-time O guy at this point. They were going to make him a full-time O guy last year, but all the injuries on the defensive end prevented that. That, to me, and again, it's one game in. They scored 15 goals. They allowed 7. So who am I to criticize this? I just don't like the experiment. Not because of the talent that Ian McKay has in lacrosse or in the forward group. I think this could work. I do believe that they can win a championship with Ian McKay as their third lefty forward, or just as a lefty forward in general. Even calling him the third lefty forward doesn't really make sense in my brain because of how talented he is. I just personally, and again, this is just personally, I believe that the lefties in Klutch and Josh Byrne play better when they have a bruiser out there that can set the tone. And I understand this offense wants to be quicker. This offense has said multiple times that they want to be speedier on the offensive end. And adding Ian McKay out there certainly does that. But I just think that you saw the stats last year. Kluch and Josh Byrne had their best statistical season. Josh Byrne won the first offensive player of the year and won MVP with a guy like Brandon Robinson setting him up. Even if it's not Brandon Robinson, which everything that we heard in the offseason sounded like he was a very hot commodity around the league. He's with Rochester now. He's not playing right now. He hasn't signed a deal right now. But I just think, like, as the season progresses, I think that's an area that can be exposed from other teams. That Josh Byrne, yes, 2, 3, and 5. Unbelievable. 7 shots, 8 loose balls. Kluch, 2 goals, 9 shots, 10 loose balls. So they were getting their shots. Even E. McKay had 11 shots on net. I just personally think that moving forward, you're going to want a bruiser on the left side that can free those guys up. And you might say, hey, we don't really have that for the righties. But the righties run 4 deep, and they're all super talented. And you got a bull horse like a Tokananiko that could take on multiple players at one time.
And Dane and Fraser who all just go one-on-one.
It's just, that is the biggest thing, and we said it all off season. We've said it to the start of this season. That lefty forward could be the biggest weak link. Again, they won 15-7, so who am I calling a weak link? But I that's the biggest area of concern to me moving forward as well. Is just if they run against a super hard-nosed team like the Vancouvers, like the Colorados. I'm thinking.
Toronto still has a good defense.
Toronto still has a really good defense, especially when they get healthy. Will the lefties be able to free up their hands and get those opportunities like they have in years past with the lefties that they run out there?
Yeah, my quick-ish math was right. The lefties scored 5 goals on 32 shots, where the righties scored 8 on 24. Not necessarily saying that McKay or Robinson's the whole issue, but McKay went 1 of 11. I think he was second on the team in shots and had 1 goal. And Byrne, first on the team in shots and only had 2 goals. And again, how good were those opportunities? I didn't really see too many of the Burns crease dives, or him getting inside and cutting across the crease. He had a lot of mid shots where he was kind of freed up and then shot it pretty quickly early. So maybe he could have, if he wanted to, gone in a little bit further, but you didn't really see him getting inside as much as we're used to. And obviously teams after his massive season and every year are focusing on making sure he does not go airburn. But Brandon Robinson was one of those guys that frees that kind of play up. So we'll see how it goes throughout the season. Again, game 1, 15 goals. Really hard to knock any kind of aspect of this team or this game, but we'll see how McKay does up there. And again, it's nothing against McKay. I would just rather have him. He was picked preseason as the transition player of the year going into the season, and then you just make him a forward. So we'll see. They've won, 2 championships, been to 4. What do we know? They seem to know what they're doing over there. So we'll see how it kind of pans out. But game 1, didn't love it, but it worked out pretty well.
Yeah, that's my biggest critique is just, again, that's kind of what we do on the show. We try not to be homers. We try not to be biased. We try to find the areas that they can improve and so on and so forth. But it's less even about Ian McKay being voted by the coaches and GMs transition player, top player in the league. It's more about they wanted to turn him into a full-time lefty forward according to Ian McKay on the podcast. I think that takes away his intangibles that he has on the defensive end, and especially the transition game. We didn't see a ton of transition game in this one. It was majority forwards. Yes, you had the big outlet pass to the Matt Vince. That's transition. Yes, 100%. But you didn't see those Nick Weisses breaking up for it. You didn't see Thomas Whitty. You didn't see Steve Perillo. You didn't see those big-time rushes. You had the Dylan Robinson and the Paul Dawson, the empty netters. So I guess you can consider those transition. But you didn't have those prototypical Ian McKay 1 to 2 to maybe 3 times a game being able to get out and 1-on-1 or 1-on-0 against the goaltender. It just seems like they're trying to get faster on offense while affecting their transition game. And how many years in the past have we talked about their transition game's got to get better, Phil? The transition game's got to be better. And we fell in love with the transition game last year, and they took one of the best players of the transition and are trying to turn him into a full-time forward. So to me, again, 15 goals. I'm trying to preference this so people don't attack me. 15 goals. I can't really criticize them after one game. I'm just making a note of this that we can fall back to in the future. And if we're wrong, I can just wipe this from the internet, and it never happened. But if it does happen and they start struggling on those lefty sides, we can turn back to episode 316 where PK called them out.
Yeah, the only other thing I really have, I don't know what else you have, but more of a question than a comment, I guess. I didn't notice either of them, which is good for both of their positions, but Woody and Spanger, first games in a long time. Obviously, Woody first game for the Bandits, and then Spanger first game in a long time being healthy. Did you notice either of them for anything unconstructive, I guess? I mean, either, speaking of the transition, kind of expect both of them to pick that up at some point, so didn't see them as a positive boost to the transition, which for game one is a bummer, but I didn't see them really either hurting the back end, which is also positive. So did you notice either of them for the wrong reasons?
I didn't, and I also didn't really notice them for any good reasons either.
Right.
Which on defense, you can kind of take that. Whitty, 1 assist, 3 loose balls, 1 turnover, and then Spanger had the 1 penalty. Yeah, the 5 loose balls and 1 turnover. So the stats back up me not really noticing them as much. But again, that's not a bad thing. It's you would like to see them in the transition game as we move forward, but again, it wasn't really needed in this game. It's just something that I hope they do have in their back pocket. They're able to pull out the Nick Weiss in the transition game, the Steve Priellos, the Whitty and the Spanger, especially when Spanger's on. He's a very good transition player as well. He puts up those numbers. I remember dating back to our own BSC fantasy game where one of us drafted Spanger and he was putting up good time points. So I didn't notice them for any bad reasons. I really didn't notice anybody on the defense for any bad reasons whatsoever. I love their penalty kill again. I still think what Paul Dawson adds to that penalty kill is invaluable, and it cancels out the 2 negatives that I did see him on the regular 5-on-5 or the 4-on-4s. But he's just they mentioned it on the broadcast multiple times, and shout out to Dave Buchanan. I loved him on the broadcast. He was a former goalie. He was drafted to be a goaltender, so he's making those saves on the penalty kill, and you love to see it. And he's standing right in front of Matt Vince, and that's exactly what Matt Vince wants. So him on that penalty kill continues to what we saw last year where it improved, and hopefully it continues the rest of the season, and it continues to wear off on the rest of the defense.
Yeah, 4 blocks by Robinson, 3 blocks by Wires, 2 blocks by Belter, and shockingly, going really against my bold predictions so far, Dawson only had 1 in game 1, but the whole team put up 12 compared to Rochester's 8, so they are going right back to what they did last year, getting in lanes, getting in the way, really frustrating the other offense, and you can tell the bigger players that are a little bit taller, a little bit bigger, and Wires, Robinson, and Belter all getting in the way, with Dawson maybe taking a step back from the bruises, but telling his younger guys to get in there and step up, and you can definitely tell they are.
Yeah, if you notice, we didn't criticize the refs whatsoever. I didn't really agree with the first burn call and the second, the delay of game. Didn't really understand it. I think the ref just had a bad angle on it. I think he thought Byrne touched the ball when he was going to chop O'Connor and didn't. He just ran with him. And then the second call on Byrne, kind of sticking up for the bad hit on Weiss, went to 4-on-4. Didn't really like either of those calls, but, I mean, what can you really do? I think it was bad vantage points, and what do I call it? They always call the second man in, and Josh Byrne was the second man in. So I get both calls. I understand where they come from. I just wasn't a fan of calling either of those ones. But, hey, we don't criticize the ref. We don't blame the refs for their effect on the game unless it absolutely needs to be called. I didn't really notice anything bad in this one whatsoever with the refs. But, Phil, that pretty much taps out what I have to say on this episode. Wish it was done because my throat is killing me. Is there anything else part of this game before we move on to the milestones that were achieved in this one?
The only thing with the refs that is frustrating to me, I just don't understand how you call both in one play is the toe hook and Nanacoke unsportsmanlike conduct for embellishment, but also calling the penalty for hitting him. I just don't get. I don't know. I just don't get how both can exist in the same play. Either to me it has to be one or the other.
In hockey, I never understood how you can make the penalty call, but then you can also call it against the person that's receiving it for embellishment. I don't get it.
It's either a call or it's not a call and it's embellishment, and you give that call. I don't understand how it's both. If he got hit, then what's it matter if he's embellishing if he is,
Right.
if he got hit for whatever reason? I think it was a cross check maybe in that one.
I think so.
But if he got cross checked and he embellishes it, but you're calling the cross check, then just call the cross check, not the embellishment. And if you don't agree that it was a cross check and he clearly was embellishing a play, then just call the embellishment. I don't understand how both exist on the same play that they're willing to call both. To me, it's either one or the other. Whatever. I mean, it wasn't a really big play at that point in the game. Didn't really bother anything, but I just don't love that kind of call.
I agree. Yeah, it
That was
never
it.
made sense.
That was
And
it.
it's across all sports. But we did have 4 milestones that happen. I'm reserving the right to change the 4 into a 5 because I do not believe the one stat. Kyle Buchanan, he had 3 goals, so he crossed the 600 career point. Shout out to the Bandits for acknowledging that. They've been doing so good the last couple of years. Again, not patting ourselves on the back, but we started this milestone segment, and then all their milestones started popping up, and they've been advertising it more and more. Dane Smith went over 4 loose balls, so he's over 900 for his career. He did pass Jay Thornberry for 5th place in Buffalo Bandits history. Paul Dawson did play on Saturday, so he's in a tie for Aaron Bold for 9th in games played, and Dane Smith tied and passed Sean Williams with his 8 assists for 9th place in NL history. The one that I want to point out, Kyle Buchanan was 6 loose balls away from 1,000 for his career. Currently, they say he came up with 0 loose balls. I don't understand how that's possible. I don't remember the last time Kyle Buchanan had 0 loose balls in a game in his entire career. But at this moment, NLL.com has him at 0 loose balls. So that is the one that I'm reserving the right to change because, and again, this is I guess I can shout it out really quick because we're still talking about Bandits. We will not be updating the Buffalo Bandits fantasy game for the BSC until Wednesday because the NLL changes stats so often. So it is in the works. We do have the current numbers out, out for us. But we're not going to publish them until Wednesday because things do change. Saves change all the time, assists change all the time, loose balls change all the time. So we're going to give it and publish it on Wednesdays all season long. We're not going to do it and then have to go back and change it. And people are wondering, I was in 2nd place. How am I down to 4th place now? They took an assist away. So on and so we're going to come out on Wednesday with those.
And Dane is on pace for 144 assists this season. So he's got the new record locked up already.
So before we look around the NLL and what else happened in the total other 4 games, let's go over our first sponsor of the show, Tap That Tap Room.
Tap That Tap Room's at 363 Delaware Street in Tonawanda, New York. They are Buffalo's first women-owned self-pour bar, featuring 30 consistently rotating taps of sours, ciders, seltzers, malt beverages, and a wide variety of beers.
So you still need your calendars, even though we're 2 shows a week. But they're going to be more spaced out, so you're going to have to keep it handy twice a week now. But Wednesday, Geeks Who Drink Trivia is 7:30. But while you're there, you need to try this menu. Not only is the food good and well-priced, but it comes out so quick, so you aren't sitting around for 30 to 4 minutes wondering, hey, did they forget about Phil? Did you get your order? I didn't get my order. You don't have to do that. You just scan the QR code that's at your table. You place the order. There's no more waiting for a server to come around and taking your order. There's no more regretting that you didn't order something or didn't order more. As long as you are there, you can order as much as you want as long as the kitchen's open. Personally, I'd suggest the adult cheese melt. It's got Gouda, Swiss, and mozzarella served with pub chips. Who doesn't love grilled cheese? Even adults love grilled cheese. That's why it's called the adult cheese melt. So go out there. Not only can you enjoy all 30 taps that are on right now, but you can enjoy an unbelievable menu that they have. So check out their Facebook page for all their posted events and check out what's on tap and what's on deck at tapthattaproom.com. Phil, let's dive back into Around the League. Friday, the action kicked off. Colorado took down Las Vegas 15-9. Another pat on the back of Colorado, who's scoring a lot of goals, and a lot of them are coming in the second half. 5-4 at half. Colorado 10-5 in the second half. Kelly once again 8 points. Only 2 goals in this one though. Lee 3-4-7. Williams 3-3-6. Robinson played in this one 1-4-5. Malcolm 2-2-4. This is kind of what I was saying about their offense. Ward 46 saves. You know, the Las Vegas. This is another season where They need to step up. They need to find an identity. Kel struggled in this one a little bit after having an unbelievable game one, 33 of 46 saves. Flash forward. The highest scoring game of the week was one that I was not expecting. Calgary versus Halifax, 18-17 win for Calgary, 5-3 after one. Halifax was in the lead. 11-8, Halifax was in the lead after two. 15-12, Halifax was in the lead after three. And then 6 goals by Calgary in the fourth, 5 straight at 1 point. They take over. Dixon and Dobie back in Calgary. Both went 5-4-9. King led the way 2-8-10. Cook 3-2-5. This offense just exploded. And McLeod 26-45. That's kind of what I was expecting in net. I think I got those stats wrong. Back that up because that seems like 19 goals against. Double check me on that math. Stats 1-8-9. Hogarth had 4. Theed had 4. Knox had 3 for the offense for Halifax. Hill struggling in this one, 38-55. And then just an absolute walloping Albany laid on Toronto. And our picks came out on Wednesday. Then we got all the news on Toronto. And I still stuck with it. I still believe Toronto could hold out in Albany 15-4. Victory over the Rock. Rock were held scoreless in the first quarter. Just 1 goal in the first half. Just their offense is just putrid right now. And you cannot fully blame they scored 4 goals. They've got 9 goals on the season right now. And I said getting going, this was a bad decision to run it back. Jameson, 43 of 47 saves. Kurtz and Simmons both 2-1-3. Longboat 1-5-6. Firth 5-1-6. Dowick was the only real-time goal scorer, 3 goals. Small 0-1-1. Bushi 0-1-1. Craig held scoreless again. Matthews, just disappearing act once again. It continued over from the playoffs. Rose 27-38. And then the final game of the weekend, San Diego versus Georgia. Probably one of the best and closest matchups besides the Calgary-Halifax one. But this one went to overtime. Georgia takes it 13-12. Cue the overtime hero again. Seals scored 7 in the second. They seem like a second quarter team right now. Lyle 4 goals. Yeah, Jackson 1, 2, and 3. Dobson 41-53. And then all the newcomers once again for San Diego. Hellier 3-3-6. Benny 2-2-4. Courier 0-3-3. McIntosh 1-3-4. And O'Reilly bounced back a little bit better. I still think he's got a ways to go, but 37 of 50 saves.
Yeah, wild weekend. A lot of really high scoring games in general across the NLL over the first 2 weeks. Not something we're used to seeing. There's usually 1 or 2 on the week that are pretty high scoring, but a lot of times they end up being low scoring across the board. I mean, low scoring being 13-10, 12-9, something a little bit closer to that. Some of these are just wild. I mean, 18-17, we'd have to look. I don't know the last time that many goals were scored combined in a game. That seems quite high scoring for the more modern current NLL, but Colorado does look really good. I don't like their offense being this good. Lee, honestly, to me, is the story of that game, 3-4-7. In the first game, I think he only had 1 assist. He had the 1 goal, 0 assists on the shootout to end the game. Penalty shot, sorry. But to see him get 3 goals, 4 assists for 7 points, that's scary. You don't really want to see him getting going, so to see him getting going is concerning. Calgary and Halifax, I mean, for 2 bottom teams beating each other up, that's a fun score for just entertainment's sake. I don't know what either of those teams really are moving forward. I mean, Dixon and Dobie and King, like you said, that Calgary offense could be scary, but if they go up against a little bit more formidable team, who knows what that score would actually look like. Albany and Toronto, my goodness, they are in trouble right now as far as injuries. Albany just walloped a very beat-up team. San Diego and Georgia, I thought that might have been the game of the week. Just 2 pretty solid teams, 2 teams that should be in the playoffs. They both looked really good in that game. Congrats to Georgia on coming through with that victory. But like you said, all the newcomers for the San Diego team that is always ranked way too high for some reason, their offense looks really good. I saw a lot of people mention that because they fail in the playoffs, their current power rankings for the season are too high. That makes no sense. It's currently week 2, and you base it on what you're seeing now, not what they do in the playoffs every single year. So that's just a weird way to rank a team. But their newcomers on their offense are looking really good. But good for Georgia getting that win. Dobson, once again, just a very, very, very good goaltender. Like you said, I think Orig is starting off a little bit slower than you would like him to see. I thought he would take a bigger step forward this year, and so far through 2 games, he's doing okay, but just not at the level I expected him to be at.
Yeah, Calgary Halifax had 35 goals. Week 1, San Diego and Philly had 33. So you are dead on about high-scoring matches
Just
this
wild.
year. But again, like you mentioned about the power rankings, there's a reason that so many people that do these power rankings have to preference. This is not based on the standings. Like, if you want to see the standings in that order, go to NLL.com. I saw multiple people put those in their posts. Power rankings is what you're feeling, your guts, and where you rank these teams as this point stands. Now, Toronto 0 for 2 now. I had them at my 8th. They're probably going to slip further. San Diego, I had them at my 2. Guess what? You lose, you're probably going to slide down a little bit. That's what happens. It's not based on just the standings. Because if it was, it would be boring power rankings. So I'm not going to spaz out about that, Phil. I'm a very calm and individual person, especially when I'm 6. But is there anything else with the NLL or the Bandits before we move forward to the Buffalo Bills game that pretty much concluded about an hour ago?
Yeah, just a really good week 1 by the Bandits. I didn't see this impressive of a win. We both had them winning. You had, I think, 13-10. I had 13-12. We weren't even close. I don't think many people predicted them to put this kind of hurting on a Rochester team that was already 1 game into their season and just looked really good in game 1. So, I mean, if this is how they're going to start their defense of the championship, it looks really, really good and scary for the rest of the NLL.
8-1 versus Rochester the last 4 years. You're welcome.
Love it.
That's the last time we've been covering this team for 4 years, and they're 8-1. So if you beat Rochester, just send us a nice thank you card. But the team that won't be sending anybody thank you cards are the Buffalo Bills. They lost 44-42. There's not much more I can say, but Josh Allen is unbelievable. Like, his defense stunk so bad, and they still lost. And guess what? His MVP, his odds to win MVP went skyrocketing in a loss. How often does that happen? Like, how often do you see? And so many people pair power MVPs with the records of the teams. That's why everybody's saying, like, Lamar Jackson, the team's only 8-5. He's not an MVP candidate, and so on. Josh Allen's 10-3. They lost, and I think his MVP odds just went skyrocketing because he's the first one that's ever had 3 touchdown passes and 3 touchdown runs in the same game, and they lost. This defense couldn't stop anybody. They couldn't stop this cold that's coming on right for me right now. It's just Puka Nacua is unbelievable, but this defense could not get to a 36-year-old Matthew Stafford who is well past his years of Detroit running around with the ball and making those unbelievable moves. The defense, early on, when it was still the first half, I'm like, okay, Buffalo's offense has only scored 14 points. I know their defense is struggling right here, but this is a game where you really need the offense. The offense put up 42 stinking points. You had a punt blocked. Reed Ferguson just got ran over. I'm not going to overreact about one game, but this defense was definitely exposed in this one.
Yeah, I think they had 2 passes defended, which is not very good, and 3 QB hits the entire game. Like you said, just absolutely no pressure brought to Stafford. And Stafford is absolutely good enough, and his wide receiver tandem might be one of the best in the NFL. If he's given time, he's going to exploit you. He's going to find people open, and Puka Nacua, like you said, is just a monster, and how the entire NFL missed him on the draft and let him go to the 5th round, and he's just putting ridiculous stats up. I mean, 12 of 14 targets is insane, and this isn't a shot at the offense, but Cooper on the other side, 6 of 14 targets. It was his best game as a Bill, going for 95 yards. He had some pretty big plays, but that is the difference between those two. But just in general, the defense looked horrible. No turnovers. The Rams were 11 of 15 on 3rd down. Like, you can't allow a team to be that good on 3rd down. The time of possession was 38-21 in favor of the Rams. the defense just completely let Josh Allen and this offense down. And even the run game for the Bills let Josh Allen down. It was all Josh Allen running by himself. Cook was 6 of 20. That's horrible. And it was pretty much just Allen versus the world in this game with absolutely no support from anybody else. I know Shakir had a couple big plays. He went 5 of 8. He did okay. Again, Cooper, a couple big plays. The Matt Collins weekly touchdown that continues to happen when he's just out muscling other people was always fun to watch. But for the most part, this game was Josh Allen versus the Rams, and he came up just short, even though he's breaking records. There's really just, like you said, not much to take from this one. You don't want to overreact, but the defense needs a rude awakening if this is how they're going to play. This is not acceptable, and they better wake up quick with Detroit on the schedule coming up.
Yeah, I'm going to count this one as an outlier. There hasn't
I
been
hope
a
so.
big-time outlier in a few seasons. It's reminiscent of, like, Indy back in, 2021 or 2020 or something like that.
I was at that game.
Yeah, they just got blown out, and Jonathan Taylor just took over. And
it was really sad.
Less so about that one. It was more so about Puka Nacua taking over on this offense for the Rams. And we said it on the show, and we usually don't preview games, but we were saying this offense is going to have to come out because the Rams have a very good, talented pool of players. And they showed it off. And Kyron, thank you, buddy. You gave me the 5th seed over the 6th seed, who Phil now has the 6th seed. You would have gotten the 2nd seed and the bye if you would have beaten me, but your team all imploded and got hurt.
Sure did.
So I will pat myself on the back for victory, even though it's probably going to have an asterisk next to it. But also, this means we don't play each other until the finals, if that does happen. But yeah, this is definitely I'm putting it as an outlier. This is a defense that we gave the stats last week where they turn it up in the second half. And I guess you can say they got improved in the second half because they only gave up 20 points as opposed to 24. So technically they continued that streak. But this is a defense that has been known and has been able to adjust at halftime, make those adjustments, and shut the opposing offense down. They were not able to in the least bit in this one. You gave all the stats, 11 for 15 on third down. The time of possession difference was massive. This was just a Rams offense that wasn't able to be stopped by this defense whatsoever. We don't preview games, we already said that, but I am very, very, very nervous going to Detroit and seeing what an offense that is even better is capable of against this defense. So this defense has to improve, and very quickly, otherwise we might be sitting here talking about the same thing, and then it's not an outlier. Then it's a problem. So, yeah, I don't really have a ton more to say other than Josh Allen might have just sealed up his MVP unless he just implodes the last 4 games of the season.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to have to, like you said, repeat what they did this game, except the defense is going to come up a little bit better, but you're going to need MVP caliber Josh Allen in order to beat Detroit. Detroit is going to score a lot of points on you. Even if the defense is improved, I don't see them holding them to under 21, 24 points. So it's going to be, sadly for him, on Allen to come out against Detroit, which has a better defense as well, and pretty much repeat what he was able to do in this game. And hopefully Kincaid and Coleman can get back on the field to give him some more weapons to actually deal with. And hopefully, actually no, I was going to say hopefully the run game gets a little bit better, but Detroit has one of the best run defenses in the entire league. So quite literally expect this exact game plan again, hopefully with some extra weapons, but he's going to need to put on that MVP hat and go out and do his best impression of himself from this game.
Yeah, for all those that have said that the stats for Josh Allen are not backing up his MVP quote-unquote odds, and a lot of it has to do with the record. And so, these last 2 games, he's put up stats that have never happened in the history of the NFL. He's kind of pulled out that hero Josh Allen hat when he needs to. In these last 2 weeks, he's needed to. And I guess even last week he didn't need to, but he just did it. And this week he definitely needed to, and they still lost. So it's one of those disappointing games where you're going to remember it for years on end, where it's just going to be considered like the Puka game, or it's going to be considered the Josh Allen game or something like that, where you're just going to end up remembering this for years to come. Like we remember the Indy game. I mean, it didn't end up really mattering in the end. Really what only matters for this team is the playoffs, but it's one of those games where you were riding such a high, and everybody that has those hot takes and drastic emotions, sorry you're not getting it from here. Everybody on X and Twitter, sometimes you just got to like pull back, and before you hit send, just remember it's a 10-2 team that has not
give yourself 24 hours
performance for years and years and years, and they were running an 8-game winning streak. So I know some people love the hot takes and the bold takes and the instant reactions, but I think in this one it probably would have been better to hit the brakes and just realize that this is just seems like an outlier. And as long as Detroit is not as, I know Detroit is very dangerous, but as long as the defense doesn't look just putrid and like they can't stop anything, I think we'll go from there. But yeah, Detroit,
like if you go out and beat Detroit next week in Detroit, all this gets wiped away completely. Like no one would ever think about this game again.
Just the game's going on right now. Kansas City's up 3-0.
Barn burner.
You might have lost
it's 6.
the one.
It's
seed.
6-0. It's 6.
Oh, sorry. It must have just updated when I clicked back to the feed here. But yeah, I don't see Kansas City losing 2 more games. Maybe they will, but you might have lost the bye. But you can pretty much continue to root for the second seed here. But Detroit next Sunday. Then you got New England, the Jets, and New England. So a very soft end of season schedule. What also is soft is just the franchise of the Buffalo Sabres. They sent out Kevin Adams to talk. Like we said, we heard nothing.
What a mistake.
The only thing we really heard, and this has been a common meme now, no palm trees in Buffalo. Thank you, Kevin Adams.
One of my friends who follows Calgary a little closer, I forgot his other team, but lives in Buffalo, but he's not like the biggest Sabres fan or anything, follows other teams, isn't from here. He was watching the Sabres game. He's like, what was with all the palm trees in around? They just kept showing palm trees. Like, what was going on with that? And I was like, yeah, Kevin Adams just putting his own foot in his mouth. Like, what a terrible quote for a drowning franchise. Like, you can't say something that quotable and that laughable at the same time. Like, just big old mistake on his part.
Yeah, we haven't been able to talk about that. I don't even want to talk about these games. Thursday, Winnipeg, they lost in overtime. Poor effort from Alex Tuck in overtime.
Oh, my gosh.
Byram busted his butt to get back to break on the 2-on-1. And then Tuck is just watching the puck and just slaps it in. And you could definitely see Byram was ticked about it because he broke his stick. Saturday versus Utah, they lost 5-2. Who cares? They got crushed. 6 straight loss, 2 points in 12 opportunities. They're 1-6 on the power play. Yeah, let's go back to this press conference because that was more interesting than these 2 games. Talk about a franchise. Talk about a man who can't read the room, who can't understand how a fan base can be so upset and so angry. Like, if you were trying to appease a fan base or trying to appease the media or whatever the attempt, and I understand the media requested Kevin Adams. That's why they had the press conference. He made that very well known right off the bat that he was requested, and that's why he's out here.
He should be.
I don't understand how you have a PR department, right? Unless Pagula is cutting that too. How do you go in and that's the game plan? Like, we're not going to be all broken up after one game. It's not one game. It's 13 and a half years. Like, and I understand you're not been the general manager for all of them, but read the room. It goes back. Those palm trees are going to be hung as a banner, similar to Darcy Regier saying there's going to be pain years. Like, I don't understand how separated this franchise front office can be, where they can't understand what fans and everybody else is seeing. Like, that wasn't just. They're on a 6-game losing streak, Phil. Like, when he was talking, it was a 5-game losing streak. Like, they had 2 of possible 10 points when he was talking. It wasn't like the one loss was an outlier. Like, it's a buildup. And it's not just, well, we can't just we can't use one game to hinder our future. Your future is gone. Like, there's no future right now with this team. Like, I don't understand how he can keep saying you have, And credit to the media. They were hammering him about this point. I can't remember who it was that flat out asked him, like, hey, because whenever somebody is asked about the $8 million in salary cap, all Kevin Adams keeps saying is, well, we can't take on a long-term contract, and then you tie up more money that you can't tie these players. And somebody flat out asked, yes, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about why can't you go out and get a one-year player, a one-year rental to use some of that space? Like they were saying, this is the year that Jeff Skinner's contract is not as big of a hurt as it will be as years carry on. Like this is the year that you spend up to the cap. So to me, and again, he keeps saying like Pegula gives me every opportunity and all the money and so blah 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 blah, and it's just. This is why I didn't need to hear him talk, because you weren't going to you're just going to get memes of palm trees. That's all you were going to get from this. But this just further says, like, he's just a front man. Like, he doesn't have as much say as we thought he did. Like, I think there are so many things pulling the strings behind him, and he's just a figurehead right now. It's just this organization went from, oh, good, Winnipeg overtime loss, and, Colorado it hit further rock bottom with Kevin Adams just blabbering in front of a microphone and slapping palm trees everywhere. I hope palm trees end up on his front lawn. I hope Pegula wakes up one day and there's just a palm tree on his front lawn. Like, there's going to be so many merchandise sold with palm trees in Western New York now. So I guess if you sell palm trees, you hit the lottery. Like I said, we just talked for 6 minutes. And there were 2 games we could talk about, and they don't matter. Like, this team it broke me. I said it in the last show, but it got worse, Phil. It got worse. I said I was done ranting, and then he talks in front of a microphone.
Yeah, it's the lack of any emotion from the entire team ever, and it's the same thing that we've seen for years and years, and the same thing happened in the Utah game. The defense in front of the net just does not care to be physical whatsoever, allows the teams to stand in front of the net, get rebounds in front of the net. There's just nothing about this team, like, other than, like you said, I also had in my notes, Byram busting his butt as full-on sprint to get back to break up a 2-on-0 in overtime. Looked like he cared, looked like he was trying, and he was, not looked like, he was actively showing a lot of heart to get back and get there, and then Tuck just... I don't know, just had no idea he was still playing hockey, and I assume Byram was hoping that post was Tuck's face at that moment when he smashed it to bits, and just seeing him get upset made sense, and in that situation, that's what you want to see, but why is that not happening throughout the entire team? Like, why are they not always all upset about every single loss? Like, when you watch a really good team play hockey, they look so different from the Sabres, and it's not...
different sports.
Right, and it's not just the talent. Like, yes, other teams are more talented, I get that, but they're faster, they're angrier, they try, they look like they care. Like, the Sabres for years now have just looked like a team that has no interest, and no matter how many closed doors, practice day off, we got to hash it out behind in the locker room, they come out. Yes, the Jets are a really good team, one of the better teams in the league. Yes, you lost in overtime, that all looks great. So, build on that after your big conversation in the locker room, and then you go out against Utah, who has the same record as you, and you drop and look terrible and get crushed 5-2 at home. Like, I don't know. I don't know what this team is, and we've been saying it for years now, and every single time you hope something is going to change, they don't do anything, and all of Adams' responses to every single question were so neutral and just... treading water, just kind of very boring. I mean, asked about Power, he was like, oh, he's not physical, but we're trying to get him physical. Asked about Quinn, he's like, oh, well, he's young, but he's not that young anymore, but he's still young, and he's still learning, he's still going to get better. Like, the same excuses for these things over and over and over, and it's the same things we've heard from everybody in that, and the same things we can see. Like, I need new answers or new solutions, something. Like, and he's just... went out there and said absolutely nothing new or interesting whatsoever, and then just went back to his hole to hide, and just it seems like nobody in the organization could care about this team winning or being decent ever. I don't know. I don't know what to do with this team anymore.
And this is the year to break the drought, because you're still only 4 points out. Like, the Rangers have 29 points. You're sitting with 25 points. The Rangers are in the last wild card.
The Rangers, who just traded away their captain because their team's not doing very well.
The entire Eastern Conference, besides that, like, 3 teams are struggling. Like, the whole Atlantic Division stinks. This whole Eastern Conference stinks. And you're the stinkiest one of them all. Like, okay, you're 4 points out, but you got to jump the Rangers. You got to jump the Islanders, the Flyers, the Penguins, the Blue Jackets, and the Senators. 7 teams. This is the same situation that we said before. This is the same thing that I credited them like 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, I was saying, hey, you're in a playoff position. Yes, you're only 1 or 2 points in a playoff position, but you don't have to jump all those teams. Guess what happened in 2 weeks? You fell so far down, now you got to jump 7 teams. Like, I got nothing.
And you're playing some of those teams coming up.
They're facing Detroit on Monday and the Rangers on Wednesday, so I can't wait to talk about them on, remember, Thursday. Thursday, because the Bandits play on Friday, so we will be recording on Wednesday, putting this out on Thursday. So stay tuned for that. Phil, anything else on this episode before we shut it down? I go take some NyQuil and go to bed because I don't feel great.
I am very happy that the Bandits are back in our lives and that they are back in our lives and winning. So we have something to look forward to every week. I know the Bills have been holding on for us for their entire season, looking amazing. And even this game, despite the loss, was wildly entertaining. I mean, at least they gave us that, so that's exciting. And the Sabres are giving us nothing, so now we can switch to the Bandits being exciting and fun and looking great again.
Yes. So on Sunday we released our BSC MVP. Congratulations to Matt Vince. Monday, this episode comes out. You're listening to it right now. Tuesday, Phil's article is coming out. Wednesday, we got our NLL picks. Currently, all 3 of us are tied for first place at 5-5. We need to get a little bit better. Thursday, remember, our episode is coming out because the Bandits play on Friday, and then Friday you can see my power rankings. We're just flip-flopping those 2. I think there's only like 4 Friday games, 3 or 4, so this is one of the first ones. We don't have to really do Thursdays very often, but remember, next episode, Thursday, where we will update you all for our BSC fantasy game for the Bandits. Updates will be coming out on Wednesday. Look for the website for that. We'll announce it on all the socials when that happens. But next show, preview Bandits versus Ottawa. We will talk about the Bills heading to Detroit a little bit. Not much because, again, we don't preview. And then that other team, they got 2 games to talk about. Maybe somebody else will speak and we'll be able to cover another 10 minutes of a segment. But, we'll wrap this one up. Thank you all for listening to another episode of the Buffalo Sports Collective. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and TikTok at Buffalo Sports Collective, and on X and Blue Sky at Buffalo Sports Co. Visit our website at buffalosportscollective.com. Check out our store, link trees on our socials, or at the shop tab at the top of the website. You can follow our channel wherever you listen to podcasts, and make sure you leave us that glorious review on Apple and Spotify. Until next time, bye-bye.